What's going on, Paul?
What's going on, man? It's been a long while since we've done one of these.
Sure is. I think you have a speaker on your side, Paul.
What's that?
Do you have a speaker on your side?
Oh, is it feedbacking?
Sure is.
Oh, sorry. You're right. I do.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit here, Paul. It's been almost since like what, March, May,
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
in there.
definitely
Yeah,
been quite some time. The creator cramp days.
we're hoping to bring it back. It's a work in progress. Looks
Yeah.
like a few people are in here. Paul. It's been a while since I've used this platform, so it's like trying to navigate the chat room and stuff is maybe a tiny bit confusing at this point.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely been a while since we've done that. Hey, all right, we got some people in there. Anybody want to say hi? Anybody in the chat? Come on.
Do you remember what the chat overlay is? Nope. Okay, I get it. Yep, I see it. So yeah, Paul, there's a whole bunch of new Sony cameras now. I think we're turning into a little bit of the next like generation of cameras here.
This the global shutter was definitely a huge deal. I think it'll be very interesting to see what Sony has up their sleeve next, because typically Sony is they like to come out with their amazing features and then they just keep on trickling it down into every single camera below. They're not one to like keep all the high end features on their like top cameras like the A1. I think it almost like takes a lot of people off, don't you think? I mean, they're like,
it does like
this
it,
camera has this feature, but my A1 doesn't have it because they
Mhm.
they don't like hold features. They just keep whatever they have out, throw it in the next camera. You know?
Exactly. It's weird though because a lot of times they'll put out like their flagship camera or something that's like $5,000-6,000 camera, and then like the next one they'll put out is like a ZV-1, but they'll put the features from the one into the other, so that you have this cheap camera that has these crazy awesome features. So I'm still getting a little bit of feedback on your side, Paul. You're getting a little pickup in the mic.
Really, I had my mic muted.
Oh, I heard something, but maybe it's, who knows. It's not me. So, anyways, Paul, there's a brand new camera that just got announced. About a week ago with the A9 Mark III. This year alone, we've seen a handful of awesome new cameras that have just a ton of different features, a bunch of different specs. A lot of them are starting to get to the point where they're getting very similar looking, minus like maybe the crop that the camera has. So it's interesting times to see these cheaper cameras. I shouldn't say cheap, starting to become like as good as some of these like really expensive cameras. So I mean, like the video, I know you saw the video I posted yesterday. That's the A6700, which is with everything that thing has in that camera, it's starting to rival like the A7S III. It has more features, better autofocus. It's crazy to think like a $1,400 camera is rivaling a $4,000 camera at this point.
Dude, the colors of that thing looked like just phenomenal. I mean, man, either you did a really good job of exposing for that thing and tweaking the colors, or the camera is just that good. But I mean, I'm gonna say a little bit of both. But
Right.
that was those colors were just super punchy. It was very sharp. I mean, the image, the quality of that camera looked really good.
Yeah, that thing is very sharp. It's like I said, the autofocus is literally next to the R5 and the A9. It's the same system. It's the same processor. It has the same autofocus for all purposes necessary. What is it, like 749 points of autofocus? But it also has like all the intelligent focus modes. But yeah, the 10-bit color on that camera, I mean, now it has 1 billion colors. So, put that thing in S-Log3 and grade it at push the colors as much as you want.
Gym teacher, what's up, man?
Jason's in the chat, huh? Can't wait for Vegas, you guys. We're gonna have to do another Vegas trip. NAB.
I'm looking forward to
Sorry, I
that.
got Vegas on the mind because F1's in Vegas this weekend, and in fact, I think the ceremony is actually starting tonight. So
Oh, I
excited
didn't
for
know
it.
that.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
cool. So they're finally
Saturday.
done with all that construction and everything.
Well, maybe we'll see. I think they might be doing construction literally until like the day they were on the track. So
Sloan, the Sloan Ranger, another NAB person there.
Jake, aren't you supposed to be doing your own live stream right now, or is he a 7? He's a 7 o'clock, isn't he?
His ends
Okay.
at right at 9. He goes for about an hour.
Well, if he wants to hop on in too, we can talk some Sony cameras with Jake too.
Yeah, I bolted. Jake, does the audio sound? He says there's some weird feedback noises. Does audio sound good on your end? Those Vegas. So listen, I've lost like 60 pounds, and I'm very nervous to try those Vegas ribs again.
They're just ribs. Yeah, Jason says audio sounds fine.
All right, good, because I'm not using headphones. I'm just like, you know, I'm letting it come out my speakers a little bit, but I'm trying to manage it. All right, good. Again, if Jake Sloan says the audio is good from a professional audio engineer, that's all I need to worry about.
For a Emmy-winning,
He worked with an
Emmy-winning.
Emmy-winning producer that did
Jake,
like
what
a
is
lot of big bands. Yes,
I should specifically ask, what was he doing during that Emmy? Were you like a DP? Was he a sound guy? Was he
was doing whatever
gaffer,
the other
grip,
guy told him to do. No.
drone footage? I'm just curious. Like it's fun to know what people actually are part of Emmy winning stuff for.
Jason, I've been putting in the work. I feel like I have and haven't at the same time. I'm trying to get more consistent, and sometime like I have a video. I don't know. I edited it and it's uploaded right now. I just got to get my thumbnail done, but I wish I could spend more time on these things. But some of the videos I have planned are just kind of like me talking to the camera and not really getting a lot of B-roll and stuff like that. I'd like to do more. I mean, my the best time for me is when I get together with people like Kyle and around other creators that just inspire me. So I'm really trying to find some local people here, but it's hard. It is hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always fun when you have other people around. That's for sure, because you do stuff that you wouldn't normally do, especially because you have someone that can also help you film, which is awesome. So, sorry, yeah, we're kind of getting a little off topic, rambling, but
We
just
are.
kind of catching up with
We
the
always
chat.
do that.
Yeah, mostly just catching up with the chat here, letting people come on in. So, I know we posted the link today at like what 5, so or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
Got a lot
Kyle's
of
like,
heads up on that.
hey, let's go live today. I'm like, I'm completely game. Let's do this thing. So I quickly put all this, we have the camera creator camp or whatever, all the artwork for ready for that. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Well, let's go with a Kyle and Paul branding. So I just quickly made this all this you see here. I kind of
It looks
quickly made
good,
it
yeah.
today. So
You were trying to do that during the middle of work. I couldn't do that because I still work full time as a like a pharmacy. I work in a pharmacy in a hospital, and it's just craziness this last 6 weeks. We're breaking records like every week, and so there's no time for me to do any of this stuff. So it's hard enough as it is to get these videos posted on time every week. Or by every week, I mean like every 4 weeks, because that's how it's been lately.
that's really cool.
So DP drone pilot. Okay. That's kind of what I figured. Obviously, he's a drone pilot. So yeah, Jake, the stuff you put out, man, is just, I mean, it helps that you can, take a helicopter to the glaciers in Alaska, where, to be fair, you can point a camera pretty much anywhere and it looks awesome. So that's not fair. I got a park outside by my house and some baseball fields. That's about it.
If you guys haven't seen Kyle's review yet, you should definitely check it out. He did a really, really great job. And that's one thing that Kyle is really good at that I need to learn is to just invest in the channel. Like he rented a 6700 and a lens and took it with him when he went to Mexico, and it's hard for me to invest money because I'm not making a whole ton in the first place, but I do have a little bit that I could invest, and I typically end up buying toys for myself. But um, oh well, it kind of rolls into the Sony cameras thing. Let me just get this. This is so. This is my current setup right here, which is I'm actually this is if you see my next video, it's pretty much going to be. I've had this camera now for 3 years, which is crazy. I cannot believe that I've already had my A7S III for 3 years. I got it. I did an unboxing video on like November 1st. I finally got my like dream lens, so to speak. So my Tamron 17 to 28 is gone. I sold it because I picked up this bad boy for $1,000 on Facebook Marketplace, because now that the version 2 is out, it's a lot. I shouldn't say a lot easier, but you can
Yeah.
find deals on this lens. I got this thing and the guy was a drone pilot for the NFL. He specifically does the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I got this lens for $1,000. It looks pretty much brand new. The guy said he only used it 10 times. It had like a end or like a polarized filter on it, or a UV filter on it to protect the lens. So he definitely took good care of it. And this thing, I mean, wow. Ever since Kyle came down and I shot with him, I was like, I've got to get me this lens. So I've been kind of on the prowl looking, but now that the version 2 is out, it was a lot easier for me to pick one of these up. My budget was definitely like $1,000. City DeYoungson was actually selling his, and I just didn't want to like lowball the guy and say, he said, I'll sell to you for whatever you can afford. I'm like, I can only afford $700, $800, $900, maybe $1,000, but I didn't want to like even go that low on him. So I just didn't say anything. And he's like, after I told him about that, he's like, oh, I would have sold to you for $1,000, no problem. But I got this. This is a great deal. It's probably better than I bought it this way instead of through Sydney, because I'm sure Sydney's got a lot of use on his, and it was definitely seen better days. But it still probably functioned and all that stuff. And it would have been kind of cool to say I got City DeYoungson's lens, but man, this lens is absolutely amazing. Way better than the Tamron. I love having that 35 millimeter. The Tamron, I always felt like it wasn't quite wide enough, and it didn't zoom in quite enough. I always wanted a little more out of that lens. But anyway, that's my little rant.
Yeah, I think definitely you got a deal that you're not going to find anytime soon for most people. Like I got a really good deal on mine about a year ago. I paid what, 1,200 or something like that for mine. So $1,000 for that lens is just unreal. And honestly, like I pre-ordered the GM Mark II, and then when I started seeing like what it really was and what, like, it really didn't have a huge upgrade value to me. It's like a tiny bit shorter, a little bit lighter. I'm sure the optics are a tiny bit better, but like it would have been $2,400 and I would have maybe sold this for $1,100. It wasn't worth it for me. So I kept what I have. So we'll see. Maybe when that other lens falls in my lap at some point, cheap, I will buy that.
Is it the version 2, Jake? No, I could only wish that I could get the version 2 for $1,000, or even 1,500 for that matter. But yeah, this was the version 1, but still $1,000 for the version 1. I'll take it. I mean, I've started to notice that a lot of people are starting to sell theirs for like $1,200-$1,300 is what people are typically trying to get for those. So when I saw this one for $1,000, it was like the guy was like 2 hours away. I didn't even lowball the guy. I'm sure, like, after talking to the guy when I got there, he seemed like he was having a hard time selling it. He didn't even know about gear focus. He had an A7S II he's trying to sell. And I was like, just throw that bad boy on gear focus. You'll probably sell a lot faster and way less hassle. So he was like, oh, he didn't know about that. So he was like, thank you. And so, but yeah, I mean, I'm just happy that I can have another GMAT. Like now I have the 24 millimeter, which I'm using right now, and the 16-35 G Master, and really both those two lenses are what I use majority of the time. Mm-hmm. And then I have my 28-75 that I can use when I need a all rounder, and then the 28-200 when I want that telephoto. I think in a long run, I probably wouldn't mind having like a nice telephoto and an 85 millimeter, and I'm pretty much done. But I think my next purchase is definitely going to be an 85 millimeter.
It's a cool
That
focal
is
range.
that is neither here nor there.
So, anyways, back to topic of the Sony. I know me and you never can get on topic with anything. It seems like so. So Sony this year has released a handful of cameras, Paul. They all have new processors. They all have new sensors, all new features. Pretty much all of them are starting to become on the same platform with like most of them are all 10-bit. They have all 4K 120 or at least 60 in full frame, if not a crop. But there's, starting off at the kind of the beginning of the year, we're already looking at like the A7 IV, kind of already old. It's a great photography camera, but it has some features that are left for wanting more improvements or wanting more upgrades, which they still aren't doing it with the firmware update. They are firmware updating, obviously, the FX3 because that's a cinema line camera, so they're giving those upgrades to the camera to make it more of a cinema camera because they need to use like time coding and things like that for that camera on sets and productions. Speaking of which, productions, Paul, I don't think you've seen it yet. Obviously, the creator, I'm sure everyone's heard about it now.
I really
The
want to
movie,
see that.
the movie Creator. I literally went to go see that movie because they filmed the whole thing, or like 99% of it, on the FX3. And like the beginning of the movie is very dark, and it's meant to be very like natural moonlighting. Kind of, it's the vibe of the movie. So I kind of was like, okay, so maybe this camera is not going to be as good as I think it's going to look for a movie because it looked really dark. But then, like, I don't know, 20 minutes into the movie, you almost forget that they're shooting that on a $4,000 camera. That camera was incredible for that movie. The whole process of how they filmed that movie and why they use that camera is really cool. But that's just showcases. Everyone always asks me with these cameras and like the ZVE1 and stuff, can I shoot like a music video with this camera? It's like, yes, you can film. Like the A7S III and the ZVE1 share the sensor and a lot of the internal brains that the FX3 does, minus like time coding. So yeah, you can film a Hollywood blockbuster on a camera like this. You can film a music video. That's absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it's like all these cameras now, at least in the full frame world, are kind of sharing the same sensors or processors and stuff like that. And that's even pre A9 III, which is blowing all these things out of the water. But it's at like the beginning of the year, A7 IV, I bought my camera last year, and it kind of already felt like it was starting to lose its like oomph when you see all these new features and new things come out with all these cameras. Not that it's a bad camera, I love the camera itself, but it's like the ZVE1 came out and it had the sensor from the A7S III. It had all new menu. It has a cool touch screen. It has like things that you can touch on the screen itself to start recording or zooming in or cinematic vlog. It's got all these fun features on this thing. Not to mention that it's like about half the price of the A7S III. It has better focus than the A7S III, and it has dynamic active stabilization, which is the best thing that Sony's put on their cameras other than that global shutter this year. I'm expecting that to be on every single camera now coming out, or I'm going to be kind of upset about that. And I understand why it wasn't on the APS-C A6700 because there's already a crop there. So
I really wanted them to put that on the A7C too. I don't understand. Like, if they put that on the A7C Mark II, that would have been complete. Like, okay, maybe I need to figure out how to get this thing. I've been wanting to upgrade my A7C, but I don't. I mean, I just use it for a B cam, and it's like my wife's photography camera, and I use it for all my real estate photography. But that dynamic stabilization would have been perfect for this
yeah.
little tiny camera. And when you have a small camera like that, that extra stabilization helps a lot. But
Just want to quick address this while we're in the middle of it. Someone wrote ZV1 or A6700 for video. Depending on the lighting that you need, if you need low lighting, if you need to be able to shoot in lower lighting, the ZVE1 has that 12 megapixel sensor, which is actually really good for low light because they're really big pixels. So that would be my recommendation for that. Or if you have to have it full frame. But I mean, like the A6700, it's literally just the cropped version of that. It's basically like putting your A7 IV in crop mode, because it makes it a 26 megapixel sensor. It's still 4K. In fact, it's actually, I think, a downsampled 6K.
It's
Um,
down simple. Yep.
yeah, so it's going to be a little sharper looking than the A7S or the ZVE one. Sometimes that's not a good thing. Sometimes things can look over sharpened, but um, I mean, if you want to spend $2,200 on the ZVE one, it's a great camera. They're fixing a lot of issues with that camera. I believe when they did that 100 when they made a new firmware update so you could download the 120 frames per second, there was something in there that said stability of the camera's performance, which I'm pretty sure is Sony's way of saying fixing the overheating issue. Because I did all my overheating tests with that ZVE one with the Ulanzi fan and stuff like that, and I was getting better times without the fan by far than everyone else was getting. And I think it's because I did the update before I did that test. And when we were in Mexico, or when I was
Sure.
in Florida with you, Paul, when it was like 100 degrees,
Dude,
we never saw the icon at all. And when I was
now
in
did you
Mexico,
update that before you came to Florida,
yep,
or was it updated and out yet?
that was right when we did. Updated it right before that. And then when I went
Okay.
to Mexico for a week, I never, but not one time did I see the overheating issue. And I was filming in like 120 frames a second for long shoots. So I think they
I
fixed
mean,
that.
I
So
wouldn't be worried about overheating with that little thing. And honestly, I'm not going to do this, but it was very tempting for me to sell my Ace One S3 and jump to that. I just wouldn't do it for a few minor or other differences.
yeah,
But like I said, I'm sticking with this thing for the long haul. Like I think the Ace One S3, the ZVE one, I mean, those cameras can last you at
yeah,
least 5 years, no problem. For me, I think if I was doing mainly video, I would, and I could afford it, I would sure just go to the ZVE one. You get the full frame look, you get all the awesome video features that are in the A7 S3 and the FX3, and that dynamic stabilization is
that is
completely
pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
It's very great.
the A6700 did not have dynamic stabilization. It had just active stabilizations, which still worked good. If you're wanting to take if you like you do photography as well or want to take photos, the photos are definitely going to look better on the A6700 than they will on the ZVE one. Mainly also because the ZVE one's a mechanical, or electronic shutter. It's not a mechanical shutter. But also it's just a 12 megapixel sensor, so it's definitely better for video. But I will say the A6700, it has in S-Log3, it has kind of that dual ISO that this kind of like the ZVE one does. Only it's not 640 and 12,800. It's 800 and 2500.
Right. It's the
So
same thing
like,
as the FX30.
yeah, it's
And
the
I've
same.
actually
Yeah,
used the FX30 before. It's a very good and quality video camera.
yeah. And I
So the
definitely
other thing
had.
to consider though is in your budget range, right? So
Yep.
not only you got to factor in the camera, but you got to factor in what lenses are you going to buy,
Yep.
because if you're gonna, if you have the money to fork out, because what a basic 24 to 70, which is what you're going to at least have to start out with probably for the full frame, is going to be another 1,100 bucks. So can you fork out $3,100 or whatever, or 3,000, at least 3,000 bucks to get you even started in the system?
Yeah.
Or that's,
Well, the cool thing
people
with the
forget about
APS-C
the
is,
lenses all the time. The lenses definitely make the camera.
yeah.
And then you can always start off with a cheaper APS-C lens, and then maybe in the future, if you know you're going to move to full frame, just buy some full frame lenses to use with it,
Mhm.
and then one day you can upgrade to full frame and still keep your APS-C camera as a B camera,
Mhm.
or to sell it off. And you can still utilize those APS-C lenses until you can build up your budget for all your full frame glass. So
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things too. Like APS-C lenses are definitely way cheaper, but you can use APS-C lenses on some full frame cameras with some kind of hacks to make it work. But you can use all the full frame lenses on APS-C. So it's like you have a lot more choices to pick from. That last video I did was on the Sigma 18 to 50. I think that's like a $400 lens, and that lens was great. I do like the Tamron 17 to 70 as well because that's stabilized, so that helps a little bit better. But that's like an $800 lens, so like price wise, that Sigma lens is awesome. I would definitely recommend that. But yeah, it's if you want to spend 1,300, A6700. If you want to spend a little bit more, ZVE one. Don't let the overheating stuff that you hear all over the place defer you or make that decision harder, because that overheating issue, I'm pretty sure, is now kind of fixed. So
Yep.
Back to
And
the thing.
so
So,
what else we got? So they came
so
out
the,
with the
so
the
they
E1,
so they came out
and
with
they got
the
this
ZV.
6700.
They came out with the ZVE one. I have my 85 on here at the moment. So this is just kind of like a crop body camera, but with a full frame sensor. This thing kind of came out of nowhere. Like no one expected this. Like when I was in Sweden, this showed up at Peter's studio, and we were just like,
Really?
"What is this?" It was an interesting camera that you open it up and you're like, "There's all these cool features. It has the sensor. This thing's gonna have to be expensive, otherwise they can't sell it. And if it's too cheap, it's gonna cannibalize half their other cameras." Turns out they made it half the price of all the other cameras, and it's other than the fact that originally when it came out it had some overheating issues. This camera I think is still pretty selling pretty well. But yeah, this thing has all these awesome features, better autofocus. It doesn't have all of the focus that's in the A9 or the A7R5. It does have, I think, most of it, but I think the points of focus are not as good. But then when you get up to the A6700, which came out right after that, that is the same focus system that's in those other new cameras that also just came out. So like I said, the focus system in the A6700 is a little bit better, especially if you want to be shooting like bugs and trains and cars and planes and humans and cats. And that thing was crazy how well it works with the focus point. Like you turn it to the butterfly or insect mode and just like instantly it had a box around a butterfly. And you're like, how does this do this?
Well, it's like just when you think the autofocus can't get any better, they just keep doing another crazier
Yeah.
stuff. It's crazy. So then you got this 6700, and then they launched the A9 III, which I didn't think was gonna. When they said it, and I saw the rumors there was gonna be like an A9 III. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. They have the A1, so what could they add in this? I mean, what's the
Well,
big hype
the
about this
thing that I
A9 III?
noticed
And they did a really
right
great job
before,
of not
yeah,
telling anybody and sending the camera out, so that nothing leaked really.
yep. The thing is with that camera is that what tipped me off is about a week before they announced it, they put the A1 at $2,000 off. And I was like, whatever they're about to put out is going to completely destroy this camera. That's why they're selling it now for $2,000 off. And I know what they did with the R5, so I was like, it's going to have to be something that's better than the R5 photography camera. But what is it going to have? Like, I don't think anyone expected global shutter. I don't think anyone expected some of the features that it had. But it's, I mean, that is the main talking point about that camera is that global shutter. And what that means is like for people who don't understand how the sensors work, what makes those other cheaper cameras have a lot of like shutter roll where it's wavy and jello-y is that it starts to write at the top of the sensor and it goes down as it's recording each frame. So if something moves while that thing's going down, it's going to get that wobbly effect. But a global shutter now is just it's writing it to the whole sensor all at once. So it's not writing it like a book. It's just instantly. What the cool thing you can do with that now is you can go into like electronic shutters with photography and you can put it into that turbo mode and shoot 120 photos in 1 second, kind of like slow motion. But you're talking about photography photos, so they're full megapixel size is not just like a 16 by 9 4K version of it. You're looking at, I mean, what is that sensor? Probably like an 8K, more than an 8K in photography,
Right.
like resolution wise. So you're getting the most insane photography like burst mode that you are ever going to see in a camera, at least anytime soon. I'm hopefully expecting that they're going to maybe start putting this global shutter in some of the other cameras. Now there is some downsides to that though. I think there is some lostness
ISO.
in the ISO, yeah, and like they're going to have a little bit of what do you call it? Sorry, I'm brain farting here, Paul. You're going to have a little bit of loss because of the big gain on one thing. So,
Right.
um,
It'll be interesting to see because they were all pre-production models and people couldn't really
True.
test it. So it'll be really interesting what happens with the full production model because the ISO range, uh, the base ISO was a lot higher than normal, and so people were like having to, use a really powerful ND, and they still couldn't quite expose it the way they wanted to. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and you know let's just say they put it in the next camera that's going to come out is probably going to be A7S4 at this point. I mean,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe.
I think part of me is like they don't need to upgrade it at this point, especially now with the hype of what the FX3 just achieved. There's not a rush for Sony to put these cameras out because people are still buying them like crazy. So I honestly think you're going to start seeing like I don't know. Sony does move in divisions where it's like they'll do a handful of cheaper cameras, then they'll do a handful of like the expensive stuff, and then they'll switch over to the photography side of stuff. Like they kind of rotate. So I think we are slightly seeing like we just put out the A7C2, which means we might be seeing like maybe a ZVE10 Mark II or whatever they want to call that. We just saw the ZV1 Mark II and the F, which was kind of a F for failure in my opinion. But so
I thought
I
the
kind of think
ZV1 Mark II was kind of a failure too. I mean, not a lot of people were super excited about that. I mean, the biggest difference between that one was just the wider lens, essentially. I
yeah,
mean,
it definitely had some upgrades, but it wasn't something that you would upgrade to. It would be if you just were buying a new one for sure. This Fresca is making me kind of burp, Paul. So yeah, the Z. I think they're gonna make like because they did just put out like right after they put out the A6600. Do you remember how long it was before ZVE10? It wasn't that long. So now the A67's out. It's just like it's a matter of time before the ZVE, like the Gen Z vlogger APS-C camera comes out, and I think it's going to be a mini version of the
of the
ZVE1.
A6700. I mean,
No, I think
essentially,
it's
they're gonna do it. They're gonna make the ZVE10 Mark
I
II,
think
and it's gonna be essentially a 6700
yep,
in a ZV body, and it's gonna.
but with maybe some new features that we don't know about yet. I think that's what's going to be. It's going to be something like a ZVE1 with a crop body sensor. Maybe they don't need to do that, but I think like the ZVE10 was one of the like hottest selling cameras Sony had in years, other than the A7 III. It was a great camera. It has good photography, good video, and it was like $700, like $800. It was hard
I
to
mean,
beat that.
people have been asking for a high-end APS-C camera. I don't know, that's what they say. I mean, I could even possibly see them doing like an APS-C version of the A9-ish, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Putting
don't
in
know.
global shutter and an APS-C camera and just, you know,
I don't think
charging
we'll
your
see.
arm and a leg
I
and
don't
see who
think we'll
buys. I don't know.
see. I don't think we'll see the global shutter in a cheap camera first. I think we will see that in like an A7 S4 or something to that effect. And that's who knows? Maybe they come out with something all new that we just don't even know about either. So Sony's really good with being creative and coming up with new ingenuity and like ingenuity. They're kind of becoming the new Apple. Like there's a new camera every X amount of time, and you have to upgrade, or you're riding the train back to the station. You know what I mean? Like it's that's just kind of what
I will
Sony
say
seems
that
to be
you
doing.
have to upgrade is kind of like an exaggeration there, a little bit. Like
It,
for
they make they
like I
make you
said,
want to
this
upgrade.
this A7S3, it is really hard for me to think about what kind of feature would it take to in the A7S4 to come out that would make me have no choice but to sell my A7S3 and upgrade, because right now I feel like this camera can do everything that I could possibly need it to do. Like, and you kind of mentioned it earlier a little bit too. You're like, what would they put in the if they came out with it next year or whatever? What are they going to put in it that
Right.
would make people jump?
Well, I know for sure what I can tell you right now. What they would do, they're going to take what they already have in the ZVE1. They're going to make the A7S4 will have the focus system from the R5 and the ZVE1. It'll probably have dynamic stabilization or something better. And it's going to have probably all the features like the eye, bug, train, car, human, cat, because that's the stuff that this camera is now kind of getting old with. Is the features that are in these cheaper cameras are better than what's in this camera. And like I'm still mad that they can't just make a firmware update, but they're not going to. They're gonna wait to put that in their next new camera for this. That's
But it's interesting you say that, because they are coming out with a firmware update supposedly in like a month or something like that for this camera. I think they're only going to pretty much fix, the only complaint they're going to fix is the the focus breathing compensation. I think they're going to add that into the A7S3. And they said that there's gonna be a few other things, but I don't know what those few other things would be.
Yeah.
I doubt they're gonna be able to do anything major. I personally would be happy if they added the focus breathing compensation, and if they could somehow get like the same exact kind of menu systems as it kind of match the FX3. I don't know. And the ZVE.
It'd be nice if they could give you the same functions. I know they won't give you time coding because that's what sets that other camera apart, but
Right.
I don't
But
know.
like I would say it'd be kind of cool for it to have at least everything that the ZVE1 has. I mean, obviously, other than the dynamic stabilization. I like the menus. I like to be able to upload your own LUT. It would make it kind of convenient. But
Yeah, and that is the cool thing with so the ZVE1, unless I just haven't figured it out completely, when you import your LUT, it bakes it into your footage. But there's supposed to be a way that I thought that you could import your LUT as your gamma assist, so that
I
you
thought
would
there
still
was
get.
too.
But I haven't figured that out. I know in the A6700, the way to do that, there's an actual mode called log shooting. And if you go to that, it automatically puts in the S-Log3 conversion LUT or a LUT that you pick, so that it'll always view in your screen as the LUT, but it'll still record in S-Log3. Like when I first came home with that ZVE1 Paul from Florida, all my footage was already graded, and I didn't know it did that. So, does that kind of ruin the purpose of S-Log3? I don't know. Like, it was already expanded, so like there wasn't really much adjustments I could do. Because normally when you get back to your computer, your thing is so compressed that you can bring your highlights up and your shadows down. That adds back some contrast and stuff. But like when I did that with this other camera, it was already at like 100. So if you hit your exposure perfectly, it's fine, I guess. But I like doing my color grading in post and not having it baked into it a lot. Now, if I was doing like a special effect lot, it would have been, it's cool as heck that you can do that. So sorry, go ahead, Paul, read that. Oh, Paul, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I think if you're in your bedroom and you're pumping out content quick, yeah, baking that LUT in is great. You can just you're in a controlled environment. But like you said, when you're outside Emerald Studios and you're not able to maybe focus and get that exposure 100% correct, sure, it's really nice to be able to just not have it baked in for sure. But I think there is a way. I thought there was a way to not have it baked in.
Well, that is something. There's a lot of people always be like, "Why do you shoot in log when you're just making it look a bit like standard again?" And that's the reason why, because you can kind of screw up your exposure and fix it before it's done. If you overexpose the camera with like standard shooting, that's overexposed. That's not coming back. If it's underexposed, you can bring it up, but it'll bring a lot of noise. But S-Log, it squeezes that thing so much with the dynamic range that you have tons of room to work with afterwards. So it's like, as long as you're in that like +1 to +2 overexposed in setting, you're going to be fine. So, and that was a problem when I got back from Universal, Paul, is I did have that baked in LUT and it was overexposed because I was actually, when you have that baked in LUT in there, your exposure should be at 0. I was going 1.7 on everything. So
yeah.
So a lot of my shots were overexposed and they were clipping in the highlights.
So POV Walk says he would only give up his FX3 for a Global Shutter Mark II version. It would have to have the same low light as the FX3 and performance, and then he'll guarantee that he would give up his FX3. Mm-hmm. But hey, anything can happen, right? I believe Sony could 100% do that, and I think that's their entire plan. They always typically start off with these higher end cameras to tease it, and then now they're in there like tweaking it like a bunch of ants, to get that just right.
I'm kind of used to Sony putting out a high end one, and then the very next camera putting out a feature that one doesn't have in half the price of a camera. That's what I'm used to, Paul.
Yeah, well, and everybody can yell at Sony. I don't understand why people yell at Sony. I mean, I guess the people who spend the money on the other camera, but I think it's just great that they're willing to put all these features into a cheaper camera. Great if you wait long enough, but that's the same thing with any technology. You wait long enough and you can get it for cheaper. But the problem is you're not going to have that good feature for the other time. So it's almost like you're paying a premium to be the test guinea pig so that they can pump it out into something cheaper. But you're paying a premium to have it first. I don't know. And this is funny because only gym teacher and us would know this. So at NAB,
Saucy.
at NAB, Jason comes up to me and Kyle's like, "Dude, you guys need to check out this Lexar booth. They're doing a giveaway. And they're giving away a CF Express Type A card." And I'm like, "All right, let's all go." So
first we said no. Well, we got to get going because we're gonna go meet up with Caleb and we're gonna go get some ribs over at the Fremont Street. He's like, yeah, but they're gonna do it soon, so we should just hang out. I'm like, okay, we can hang out a little bit longer. That's no big deal. But we were kind of against it at first, Paul.
Okay,
he made us go add our names to the drawing.
So then
I'll continue.
I go add my name to the drawing. I'm like, I never win anything. I'll add my name in there, whatever. And they're doing the drawing and they reach in and they pull the name out and they're like, so and so, and like, oh well, they're not around. All right, so the trick is they have to be here. So they draw their name in for another one, pull it out. Paul Feinberg. I'm like, yes. I mean, and I kind of felt bad. I was like, I feel like Jason. Like, so then they asked me what I wanted because they had like a few different options, and I said, oh, I want the CF Type A card, the 320 gig, and they're like, oh, we don't have it on us right now. I guess we forgot to pack one. So here, take this they gave me like we don't want you to walk away with nothing today. So here, take this 2 terabyte SSD and we'll just take down your information and get you the card. Well, they finally,
and they sent you a reader too.
They what?
And they sent you the reader itself. Like,
oh yeah, it came with so it came with a reader. So got the reader and the card, and it's great. I would never probably ever buy this card with the many options out. Like if I was going to spend that much money on a card, I would probably get the Angel Bird. But actually right now there is another company that is called Wise, and they have a 512 gigabyte card for $250. So it's half the price of the Angel Bird. It's I think like 20 megabytes faster than the Angel Bird, and it's half the price, but it's also half the size. I mean, 1 terabyte is cool, but I would never need that.
Yeah, I would say I've never heard of that company, so I would take over something that I know is quality, that I'm not going to have issues with, over something that I've never heard of. That's just me, though.
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. I mean, I would definitely trust Angel Bird, but I mean, it's crazy. And then now Per Gear also has one, but theirs is like,
we're going to see an influx of high storage SD cards in the near future, I think. So,
well, I mean, that's the thing. Now these are kind of the off brands are getting more affordable on these things, and you're able to get larger storage amounts for roughly the same price as a regular SD card for these off brands. So if you're wanting to get like 256 gig or a 512 gig SD card, you might as well, and you have a Sony camera that has a Type A spot, it's great. The only problem too is like, though, you have this, if you got a Type A for your ASO and S3, well, now
won't work on
you
the
can only use it in your
ZVE1.
S3. You can't use it in your ZVE1.
And honestly, like, I don't need an SD. I don't need a CF Express card, because at most I'm only doing doing S&Q 120 frames a second in the HS mode. I don't really care about the all intra. I probably should use that at some point when you're showcasing stuff to go with the most, but there's not a need for it for me. And honestly, the other ones are cheaper and I can use them in all of my cameras. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that I've used the power of this card one time, and that was so that I could shoot 240 frames a second in S&Q mode.
But you can still do that with the V90 as well.
Can you?
Mm-hmm. Shot plenty with it. So it's kind of, yeah.
It's just unlocking the all eye mode then, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, Paul, there's a lot of new cameras. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out in the future. They're going to be cool. Um, I think we're going to see a bunch in this year. I think we're going to see a lot more lenses this year. I'm hoping that with this new A6700, we're going to see some new APS-C lenses. I'm really excited about that. I think Sigma really hit it out of the park with that like 18 to 50. I would love to see them do like a 16 to 35
Well,
APS-C size or
yeah,
something.
and they're coming out with their 70 to 200, which is
Yep.
already kind of leaked images have already come out on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm you've used the 70 to 200 Mark II from Sony. I mean, if it can get anywhere close to that quality, it would be amazing. But I mean, what do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think on that? You think they're gonna be able to
So
get close to that?
yeah, maybe. The thing is the Sony lens has like 3 different modes of stabilization. That is going to be tough to do. But it has, I don't know, it has a lot of stuff. I'm planning on got 70 to 200 still. Like I will own that lens soon. Um, like Paul, you know that I always have the numbers on the back of my lens caps
Yes.
and stuff. Let's just say it this way: I bought this one a long time ago. Still waiting for that lens, so it's coming at
I'm
some point.
actually surprised you haven't bought it yet
You
after
need to
using it
have
at New
you need to
York.
have a very good reason and make money using that lens because that's almost a $3,000 lens. That's an expensive lens. It is one of my all-time favorite lenses for any Sony camera, depending on what you're using it for. But like, because you can't use it for wide angle stuff. But what that thing looks like in that 70 to 200 range is so good.
Your
It's
photos
just
from New York was just it made me
yeah.
want to buy. I mean, I didn't even use it before. It made me want to buy that lens. Like,
I mean, I put the Tamron lens on the ZVE10, and those photos look great. There were nothing wrong with them. But when you put the 70 to 200 on that camera, it looked like like super professional full frame, whatever you want to call that camera. I mean, that made that camera look that much better. So like even like Curtis when because I was with in Curtis with can't talk today. I was with Curtis in New York. He was shooting all in his A7 IV. He had a 70 to 200 as well. He said even after like seeing my photos, he was just like, I can't believe how good that looks coming out of that ZVE10, which is not renowned as like a great sensor for for photography. But when you see those images, it's hard to disagree with the fact that they look really good. And I even printed some of them, and they look great. So it's
and
not
next time you come here, I should try to
yeah
see if I can borrow my friend's
600.
600 millimeter prime lens and see what kind of craziness we can do with that lens.
Nothing. Yeah, put it on a tripod, and that's about it. That's all that thing's good for.
I mean, he's a dedicated bird photographer. It's for his hobby, and he had a big tax write off, and he just bought that lens. So I think it's hilarious. I've only used it
ZV.
once. And I was at camera camp, and we were just all just kind of using it as like a sniper rifle, just as a joke. Really, I mean, anyway.
ZVE1 for the win. I'm glad that people are starting to like pick up the ZVE1 because it's I think that whole overheating crap scared everyone when it first came out, and that's why you can't like trust pre-production models, good or bad, because you don't know what they're going to actually be once they're out. And clearly, after this firmware update, they fixed the issues that it had. So
Right.
the funny thing is that the reason no one really understands that they fixed it is because they called it performance stability like issue, which
Right.
is they're not going to say overheating because they're never going to admit to saying they have a camera that overheats. So
Even when we were at NAB and we were talking to the Sony team over there, and I think they were mentioning that it was overheating, and they kind of like breeze it by, like, oh, that's not really an issue. I don't even know what you're talking about. What you,
yeah, yeah, I don't know. So because I was getting like in what was it, 24 frames, 30 and 60. I was pretty much killing the battery without it overheating. I mean, I think it was when it got into 60 frames a second. That's when it started having a little issues, but you don't shoot 60 frames per second for 2 hours. Like that's just no one does that. So yeah, but everyone else was getting like 40 minutes out of 24 and stuff like that originally. So that just has to be what was in the firmware update. So because in the room here, I was at 75 degrees. So it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold, but it was a base test from no fan and a fan, and the fan clearly did help the camera's output go to the
So
finish the battery and dying.
what
But
you're saying is you're happy that you purchased the ZVE one.
I'm very happy I purchased the ZV-E1. For anyone who wants an A7S III for half the price, that's the camera. In fact, I still use that now for B-roll more because it's got dynamic stabilization and it has better autofocus. So
So if somebody had the A7S III, would it be a worthy upgrade?
I think it's a great camera to pair with it. Or
You
like
wouldn't,
for
but
an
you wouldn't.
upgrade, you would
If you had to choose between the A7S III and the ZVE one,
if you
you would
wanted to sell
still.
your A7S III and make $1,500 and buy that other one, sure. I mean, it's got a lot of the same functions. There's some usability differences, like there's no dial on the front wheel for the shutter. So for me, like I hate using the back wheel. If I don't have to, I won't. But so like there's some usability features that are better on the A7S III, and there's more custom buttons and things like that. But there's still workarounds on all of that. So I just also like that it has touchscreen abilities to move stuff, and you can actually use crop mode and zoom in on the sensor. You do lose a little bit of the 4K resolution, but
Here's what if I had to choose two cameras to pair, or a camera to pair with the ZVE one, I mean, I would say if money
this
was
looks
no
stupid.
object,
But A7 IV and the ZVE1, that's what I
and
would pair.
if it was me personally, I would try to keep it in the same compact family for me, and I probably would just get the A7C Mark II because it's got a few more features that over the A7 IV, and it's still cheaper, and it's still in that compact size. You still got two compact cameras. It
Or
depends on if you really
you can
like
mix it
using
up
the
a little bit,
viewfinder,
Paul.
because honestly, I never use a viewfinder on my A7C because it's just so small and tiny. And I mean, if I really need to look through and see it, I will. But I always end up shooting on the back screen on mine. So if you want to use a viewfinder, A7 IV. If you don't really care about the viewfinder and you're completely content using the screen on the back, A7C Mark II would be a very good upgrade. And also a budget range. If I'm assuming you're budget minded, otherwise you probably would get an FX3 instead of a ZVE1. But if you really wanted a piece of a photography camera, then grab a used A1 or get the R5. But I
I'll
mean,
just say it this way: I literally went to Mexico with the ZVE1 and the A6700, so $1,000 cheaper than the A7 IV, and it's honestly, I actually liked it better for video. It has better autofocus. It has all that stuff. You don't need the viewfinder, Paul, when you have that system that's on that camera. That thing locks to focus so freaking quick.
oh yeah.
And you can change the how it focuses, the speed and transition speed. But that camera was just you just push it halfway down, it focuses to probably what you want. If not, touch the screen on the back, focused.
Honestly, if I was getting a camera only, and it depends on how much photography you do and what kind of photography you're going to do and how you're going to use the photography. If you're just posting on Instagram, social media, why even get another camera? If you could probably use the ZVE1 for everything. I know that I could 100% get away with using my A7S III for everything, and I have no problems with that. It does have a electronic shutter as well, so that helps a little bit. But I would get the E1, and if you need another, if you need two cameras, because I do like having two cameras, then sure. But if you're wanting to get the best video and the best photo, or you feel like you need to get another camera to get the best photo, and you need to have that separation, then I don't know. I would try to get the E1, mess with it, and if you feel limited by the photography on that, then get an A7C Mark II, whatever. Or like Kyle said, if your only focus is photography, I think it'd be kind of cool to have an A6700, because then you can have the crop factor of
It does. There's something to be said about popping. You pop on a 200 millimeter lens, it's now a 350 millimeter lens. So it's there's some cool factors with having a crop body. I'm just gonna throw this one on the screen too, because this is kind of an interesting top point. He says, whoops, sorry, I went to the wrong one. Here we go. Still kind of feels bad listening to us, even though he just sold his EV1 for the DJI Pocket 3. He still has his A4 and his A1. saving for that FX3. That DJI Pocket's pretty cool, Paul. The only thing that I really don't like about it is that it's like, when you watch everyone's cell phone videos, how it's like everything looks the same. No one seems to ever want to use the wide angle or the zoom. They just like, I'm so used to seeing that stupid 24 millimeter focal length that's all you ever get. And I know you can add the little wide lens on there, and they'll probably put maybe some sort of zoom lens on there at some point. But that's the only thing that I don't like about the Pocket 3. Other than that, that thing was incredible.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
it's got a great
great. And
image. Yeah,
honestly, I'm obsessed with the 24 millimeter focal length. So it would feel right at home for me. But
yeah.
there's something to be said about like it's
Multiple lenses,
still
multiple focal lengths. Yeah, just
it, it still looks like, I don't know, it looks impressive, but is the stabilization worth it over your phone? Now this phone looks amazing, So I mean, and you get the different lenses with it. So is it worth spending $600 to not have to use your cell phone? I don't know. I don't know.
well, here's the answer right there. There won't be a zoom lens, and the wide angle zoom lens distorts too much. So, I mean, for what you get though, that thing looks freaking cool. Like, but you're getting one focal image, you're getting one kind of aperture look. So, if you're using it for vlogging only and kind of like showcasing it that way, yeah, it's cool. It's a sweet camera. I kind of want
And
one.
you gotta check out Ken's video he did a really cool real estate shoot, a whole real estate shoot with the Pocket, and even like did one shoot with his high end full frame camera, and then did one with the Pocket. And I gotta say, the Pocket does hold up if you're looking for just something super quick to run through these houses with. I think the Pocket's a great thing for real estate, because I even am tempted to just use my cell phone at times on on a gimbal. I've seen other people go into houses after I'm walking out from doing photography, and they're just walking in there with their cell phone on a cell phone gimbal and shooting the entire house, just because they know they can shoot it really quickly and just get it up there. Sometimes it's not always about quality, especially when it comes to real estate. People kind of tend to forget about. But
yeah, Ken's bringing the points. All right, you guys, we're turning this talk into the Pocket 3 talk.
We're gonna have to send Ken an invite, throw him in here.
Yeah, for reels and vlogs, I can't imagine that's probably one of the better bets, other than obviously your phone. But yeah, it has a cell phone vibe a little bit. I'm too much of a sucker for changing apertures, changing focal ranges, that having that is kind of not something I would use as much. Like, I got my Action 4 Osmo, and same thing. It's just like, I'll use it for certain things, but that's about as much as I'm going to use it. If I'm doing like a POV photography video, or I still have to post the video. Paul, I got a whole video on the Osmo Action 4. We used it to do the like river swim in the underground rivers in Mexico.
Okay.
And some other stuff. I'm going to have to piece that one together and kind of come up with some kind of storyline or structure, because
I haven't used my Action 4 enough yet. I mean, I've just kind of taken it with me as my kid on the park, and it's kind of nice to be able to pull that out and not have my cell phone and not have my other big cameras. I mainly bought it because I want to do some more POV stuff. I want to. I haven't done it yet. I think I'm looking forward to doing like a photo shoot.
Yeah.
Another photo walk or something with it.
Ken would know this. Is the Osmo Action 4, is that a good camera for drone, like FPV stuff?
Oh, it's a great camera for FPV stuff. Yeah.
I just haven't seen enough videos, I guess, with that specific one. So.
I mean, and Ken would know. He does more FPV than I do. I have a controller now. I've been practicing in the sim, but I'm so terrible. And I actually haven't even picked up the sim in like probably a month or so. I've been so busy at work that I haven't really got time to practice. But it's still hard. It's a lot harder than it looks. But
this is an interesting question. I think the answer I'm going to say is, first off, we don't know, because Sony's just weird like that. I would guess those two cameras were going to be separated by at least 6 months themselves. And I think they gave a bunch of firmware updates to the FX3. So I don't think that's going to be upgraded first. That will be the last one that gets an upgrade, because they've been giving them the upgrade already in the firmware. And that's that's becoming an established cinema camera for whether they're using it for a full length movie or just crash cam kind of stuff. I think that's cameras just now getting like more accepted in that world. So I think we'll see the Mark II of that later, but the A7S IV would be the one I would expect first. And if I would guess anything, I would guess summer or late fall if it did come out next year. Just for the timing of how Sony puts out cameras. And
here, I mean, I think if they come out with an FX3, it's for sure going to have global shutter. I mean, I guess it's also if they have the A7S3, and it'll. I think they will possibly, if they can figure it out in time, have internal NDs in the FX3 version 2 and not have it in the 8. They'll have a bigger differentiator between the A7S line and the FX3 in this next release. I think if they can pull it off, I think they'll have internal NDs in the FX3 version 2 and not in the A7S3.
Possibly, yeah. But if they even put it in either. So, there's also the FX6 is going to be one of those cameras too that's going to be maybe looking for an upgrade in the next year or two as well. So it kind of depends on what they want to do with the cinema camera. They might make that FX3 more into the cinema line than it has been at this point. They might make it more into the Venice line. Who knows? I mean, it's right now the hype of just filming a blockbuster movie with the camera. That camera doesn't need an upgrade. It's the same thing why a lot of the Reds don't have new models super like all the time. It's just you get something that's good and then you stick with it for a while. And
Red's definitely not Sony, but
true, yeah. Yeah. I would guess if anything, if it did come out next year, it would be a mid-year or late year.
DJI Mic 2 is awesome though. I mean, Rode kind of set the bar high for that one, right? They kind of said, "Hey, we're coming out with 32-bit," and you knew the DJI would have to follow.
So DJI Mic, the Mic 2, that's only at this point for the Osmo Pocket 3, right?
It is.
They don't have like
David Manning posted a video where he showed it far away. I couldn't see. You can't see it, and it was in its like packed up form in a case, and said like, "Oh, this is my DJI Mic version 2. Put it in the case." So I'm sure the whole thing's already out, right? So they got the transmitter. The only difference is what's the case going to look, charging case.
Well, the new transmitter with the Action 4 or the Pocket 3 is like Bluetooth, isn't it? I don't think I thought it was a Bluetooth connection or something like that. I honestly haven't looked enough into that one as much, I guess.
It's got this, you can use it with it. It's the same. And I think it's great. The transmitter is brilliant. They took the wind muff, and the wind muff plugs into the 3.5 millimeter jack that you would plug your external lavs into, because you're not going to use them both at the same time. And then now it's even more secure. You're not having to worry about it falling out, and you're taking up less space, so they didn't have to like carve out like a little hole around, the microphone capsule or anything. So I think it was a brilliant design. They just kind of made the whole top of it like the mic capsule essentially, and then had the little 3.5 millimeter jack in the middle of that. So it's cool. It's a cool design. 32-bit float is awesome. I really loved the new Sony mics that have the auto mode, because even at the end of the day, like 32-bit float, you still kind of have to bring it into your audio, and adjust it, the levels. You do have a little bit more wiggle room, but I love that auto mode on the M1, the ECM B1, and now those little lav mics they have. Yes.
This thing looks kind of goofy and it is small. The features that it has, I've definitely noticed that doing the both left and right or front and rear does make it sound not as good, but it still sounds better than not having a mic facing the back.
Right.
The B1M, I can't keep these names straight, Paul. The B1M, I think, is ultimately a better sounding microphone, because there's more substance to it, and I think this one is a more convenient microphone. But honestly, I don't do anything anymore, Paul. I literally record on this mic. I put it into my timeline. Maybe if anything, I'll adjust the volume down a tiny bit, like 1 dB. I don't add compression. I don't add EQ anymore. Even when I'm doing talking heads in here, I know I'm getting a little more reverb with it, but it sounds good to me. Like it sounds full because this thing has some sort of, it's doing something with like compression or limiting to make the voice like more uniformed. So I want that feature in like more microphones,
Yes.
regardless if it's Sony or not.
Uh,
I'm
like
a
I would
lazy
love to see
asshole.
Rode come out with a microphone
Auto
that
gain.
utilizes that hot shoe mic and has their own auto mode, because they could come out with one that sounds better and utilize all that same stuff. So, and I've seen Godox has a wireless lav kit that uses the Sony hot shoe, and so you don't have to use any cables into it. But haven't seen any other manufacturers utilize the Sony hot shoe other than that one Godox mic. So I know it's possible, but I don't know if, and Sony's got the market share for it. I don't know.
Hey, Paul, you know what time it is? Everybody's favorite rec center at the creator camp. This is the game that. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. I'm going to go grab something in the other room, though, Paul, and bring it in here real quick.
What's that?
I was going to go grab something in the other room real quick and bring it in. So I'm just going to quick minimize my thing for a second, okay?
That's fine. Yo, we got this. So, anyways, microphones, audio is really cool. I'm really excited to see what Sony comes out with this coming year. And when I got on Sony, I was using Panasonic. Gosh, the autofocus was terrible. Sony enticed me enough, not only because of their great autofocus on that A7 III, but between their customer service of just like doing these events and showcasing all this stuff. And then I saw that, I know what he's doing now just by hearing. I saw that, they were innovating, and I had enough faith in them to invest in them that they were going to innovate. But I think Kyle has something to show us now.
Well,
like
I was going to show you.
If you haven't seen his backpack tweet, it's probably what it has something to do with that.
It's my Sony camera with my live cat.
Dude, if that cat scratched your lens right now, I would just be like,
man. We got little kittens, Paul.
My in-laws just got a kitten because her dad was missing having a cat to pet while he was watching TV. And so I know all about kittens right now too.
These guys so we fostered a cat and we didn't know it was pregnant. And then like a week later, we're having babies at the house. So we got six total. Yeah.
Those things are very talkative.
They're just grippy right now. So yeah, I'm going to go bring them back in the other room though.
All right. Oh, he wants one. You want a cat? You want a cat? They're in Minnesota. Oh man, I'm just looking forward to seeing what Sony comes out with, because I'm a Sony fanboy to heart. So I'm just excited to see what they come out with. But man, I am telling you guys, if you guys are, I know this is not budget and all that stuff, but if you can find a deal on this lens, I still think it's a great lens to purchase. I think it's a great lens to purchase, man.
And if you can find a deal on this Baddest 85, I would definitely pick this up. Dude, no one's going to get a better deal than when I paid for this thing.
Dude, I am so jealous of you. How much didn't you get like that lens for like $500 or something like that?
Mint condition in the box, like a cool box nonetheless. $450.
Oh god.
Nothing wrong with it. No scratches, no dust. This thing is like, it's just, if you want like the most blurred background ever, it's a 1.8 zoomed into 85, which already makes it look way more than a 1.8. I know there's a 1.4, but honestly, I think this thing looks cooler than the Sony 1.4. or 1.2 or whatever the heck that is that I had. So love this lens. I used a little bit of it in my A6700 video on the A6700, which is more of, what is that, 85 times 1.5? It's like 120 mil or something like that. That one, that looked cool. It made the whole ocean. Like, Paul, the stuff that I put in that clip was actually at like F5.
Wow.
But it was so, that zoom, when you zoom in that far on
Yeah.
on a subject that's close, you get crazy depth of field. And I was just like, I want to make it look a little bit like an ocean in the background, not just a blurred mess of nothing. So
would you say the Batis? You think the Batis would be better than the 1.4 Sigma?
the Sigma looks good too. They're both sharp. This is the sharpest. This has stabilization, which none of those other ones have. And this one also has that kind of cool digital readout on the top if you're wanting to see your distance between things.
Do you think that Sony is going to come out with an 85 1.2 like their 50?
They'll make. I know they're going to come out with a new version, anyways. I don't know if it's a 1.2. It doesn't need to be a 1.2 when you're at an 85.
Right.
Like that depth of field difference in that zoom already makes it look more like a 0.95, or like I said, like I'd hardly use 1.8 on this lens because it's so much depth of field that it also makes it like razor thin on what's in focus. So like if you want to get something good in focus, you're sitting up at like f3 minimum. So depending on light, if you're in low light, you're maybe a different, but Sony's got some cool stuff. And I just want to show this too, because this is fun. I showed you already, Paul.
Oh yes, I want one.
Funko Kyle Watts with the camera and my little like North Face jacket. It's my thumbnail, Paul.
Yeah.
Or not my thumbnail, my
it's Sweden
profile.
Kyle.
Sweden Kyle. Dude, I need to go back. I definitely need to go back. I'm waiting for Peter to get his house finished because he said once he has a house,
like an in-law building for somebody to stay there.
Yeah,
on
he
purpose.
said guest house, and I'm guessing when you think guest house in like Florida or something next to the pool, it's usually like a substantially like big pool house. Being in Sweden, like seeing how things are just compact and no one needs to have that extra space there, it'll be like probably like the Airbnb that we stayed in, where it's just like everything that you need is right there, but it's like shrunk down a little bit. But
I'm cool
totally
with that.
Fine. Yeah, cool. It was.
He wanted me to go with you very badly, but I just could not afford it, especially and go to NAB. But I really want to go. And Chelsea would be very jealous.
Yeah, I would like to go next time where I was invited to have a place to stay, because like the staying part is, it adds an extra $500-$600 on top of that too. So, but I'm excited. I definitely want to go back. There's some really cool areas out in Gothenburg that are. We did one of them where we went to the islands and did the FPV drone, and we kept getting there right before sunset, which was always the mistake, because it's like if something was wrong or a battery was dead or a drone crashed into the ocean, there was no second chance. It was like, oh, sunset. That's it.
Right.
And it was like an hour to 2 hour ordeal to get on a ferry, get across an island, to hike all the way down there. Like it took a while. So it was funny when we went back and then once again, there was a problem with the GoPro, and we ended up having to use Curtis's like GoPro 8 or something like that. But yeah, there's some really cool places there, and it wasn't so bad in February. It was kind of cold, but I mean, I live in Minnesota, so it was warmer there than it was here at that time. I was fine with it. So,
if you want something very interesting for your camera, I just posted a link in the chat. Peter has finally made his little battery holster for the Sony system, and there's 3 batteries, and right now that link is a pre-order. It says out of stock, but what it is you're gonna be able to get the cheapest price on it. I think it's like $108 or something like that is what it kind of calculates out to. I think and with shipping, it's like my house, it was like 120 or something like that. So
it's he will be posting more photos and like a video for it and everything soon. but this is like a pre-order, I think, to kind of get more movement under it. It's sweet. I saw the prototype. I've seen every step along the way, and I think you have too. It's a sweet, rugged 3 battery holder that has battery charging, and it's a power bank. It's basically a big power bank you can plug into, or plug it into the wall and charge it. So,
Oh, he said that the link. Oh, it isn't. That's weird.
is the link dead?
The link is dead. That was the one that.
Maybe, yeah, he maybe has it turned off for the moment or something.
Huh.
That was a pre-order link, so it'll be up soon. But if you guys keep an eye out for Peter Lindgren's battery thing, if you want to have something that's like a sweet case that'll hold 3 batteries and charge them all at one time, or you can use it to charge your phone. I mean, like it's just like a power bank with all these other things like the Osmo Action and stuff like that. But it's going to be to fit, I think, Sony, Nikon, and Canon specific batteries. So it's going to be really sweet. It's put together between him and I don't know how to say the name, but it's like Jupio. Yeah. And I don't know if you're going to get batteries with it or not, but I think you will.
I don't think so.
I think you will because I think you're going to get the Jupio batteries.
Was the pre-production did not have the batteries?
Well, all of the pictures that he showed me, I have those batteries in it. So, but it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to hold 3 SD cards, 3 CF Express cards, 3 batteries, and it's going to be pretty sweet. So keep an eye out for that. If it was smart, he'd put it out like right during Black Friday, get the orders going. But it's a process between him and a different company, so it's probably not 100% on his timeline. So
definitely not 100%, but yep. Oh well, the link is not good, so I guess never mind. But it will be on there. It'll be there eventually. Huh. Well, Kyle, you got anything else for us?
I'm kind of thinking I do need to eventually go back out and do another photography POV video. People keep asking about it.
A lot of people have really. I didn't think they were going to like your video as much as you did either, because usually POV videos are hit or miss whether you're going to get views. But yours
so much.
well.
There's so much work too. I don't know how Curtis does it, because that seems to be all he does is like POV videos with those photography shoots. Maybe he just has a system now and he can go, but it's like editing all down to like a 10 to 20 minute video, finding all the photos that you have to edit all your photos. Then you have to find where they are in the video, put them together, and then shorten everything. I mean, it's such a huge like edit and challenging that. After I did the first one, I was like, I don't want to ever do that again. But then when I met up with Curtis in New York, I was like, well, I'm going to do another one because that's what we're going to do. I posted that thing. I always post those videos thinking I put in like 25 hours in editing in this stupid video, and it's going to probably get like 10 views, because that's usually what happens. The ones you put so much time into end up being nothing. But yeah, that video like jumped up to 150, 200,000 views, and like even Curtis's videos
for it.
Even Curtis's videos weren't getting that many views.
Special is that you were using an affordable camera too. Like there's a lot more people that wanted to see what the camera was capable of.
Well, and I think that everyone knew that it was a video camera, but that was a thing that was like, but isn't good at photography. Maybe that's why I need to make another trip. And you think you would want to go to New York and pull out the A7 IV or like an A9 and like shoot the best things you could possibly ever get while you're there. But I think I'm honestly going to go and bring the ZV-E1 next time and do a photography video with the electronic shutter E1. And I think when you get the results and you show them, it's probably going to be very similar to the E10, where you're going to be very surprised on how good that camera might still actually be at shooting photography. So
that means you need somebody to go with you that has an A7 S3 that can get the same exact.
You actually can't go to New York yet, Paul, because you still need to go with your wife first. So you gotta get that out of the way so that you can go with other people.
She's taking so long that I'm about to like veto it. Like, sorry, I'm going.
Just go, yeah. No, I might have some time coming up here. My schedule's been really crazy busy. between work full time. We're at the worst. Pharmacies are always at the worst at this time of year. My wife's in the middle of like about to do her navalist, which is like getting her doctorate in veterinarian school. So she's in full out study chaos mode, and it's tough to kind of do a lot of side extra stuff at the moment. So, but I would love to try to get out to, God, even New York would be fun. I might have some time off later in December, maybe we'll see. But yeah, people keep asking for more videos like that. And they're fun videos because you're actually almost watching a travel video, but you're also watching how someone does their photography.
Right.
So it is an interesting concept to watch because it's like you get to see from the eye almost of what they do and why they get the certain angles, the settings someone might use, but also you're getting to see like cool sights. So
Perfect
you
question
guys,
for Kyle, because
yeah,
Kyle owned or still owns the 6400.
I don't actually anymore.
Oh, you sold it.
I sold it,
Wow.
but I know everything. I had that camera for 5 years. I know it inside out.
I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but you go for it.
I used to say if you want photography, go with the A6400, but honestly, the ZV-E10 just outperforms the camera. It's newer. It has better autofocus. It has better video. It takes still phenomenal video, like photography, and like I proved that in that New York video.
And it's super small.
It's cheaper. it's super small. It's newer. It's cheaper. I would recommend getting like a cage like I have on this one though, where it's gives you more of a grip, which is nice.
And the
But
flippy screen. I like it
yeah,
better than the flippy up screen.
there's some issues. There's some stuff like it's an 8-bit camera, so it's not. You're not if you're like I honestly shot standard footage on that camera. I didn't shoot log footage hardly at all on either the ZV-E10 or the A6400 because it had a really good look to that standard profile. So really only dealing with just a little bit of dynamic range issues, and you're dealing a little bit with that rolling shutter. If you can afford to spend more on a newer camera or wait a little while, that A6700 though is a massive upgrade for those cameras in every way. Like better sensor, it's 10-bit, it has stabilization. I mean, you're talking like the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit is 16 million colors in 8-bit, which you can move around a lot. It's whatever. There's 1 billion colors in a 10-bit sensor. Like you can't even compare to how much bigger that is than 16 million. Like the numbers just sound normal, but it's so much better than the
I can't
other
go back
8-bit.
now.
It's really hard. That's why I got rid of my 6400. And actually the ZV-E10 I had is now put money into the ZV-E1. So it's that 10-bit footage is just so good. And you don't need to shoot in 10-bit if you don't want to. You can still shoot in 8-bit, but it's just like I love grading footage now. It's super easy. S-Log3, you bring as long as you exposed it correctly, you drop a LUT on there and it pretty much takes care of it like that. In fact,
Yep.
if you go use like either the Phantom LUTs or even like Peter Lindgren's got a few new ones out. Lindgren's are very color saturated and like contrasty. So sometimes you have to kind of tweak with them a little bit, but most of the time you pop it in and you're like, looks good. The A6400 though, 6700, you can put those preview LUTs in the camera, which makes it that much cooler to be able to like just look at your screen and know what it's going to look like. Having that ability to do that makes it so you don't have to stare at that like exposure sensor. Because like with my A7S III, I'm always putting that to like plus 1.7 overexposed because that's how you expose correctly for S-Log3. But it's so much nicer just to look at the image on the back of the screen and go, that looks good. We're good.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, the ZV-E10 is flip screen, lighter. It's got more features. It's got a little bit better autofocus. Between those two in that price range, the ZV-10 all day long. And don't say just because I'm saying the A6700 is really that much better doesn't make that ZV-E10 bad. It's a great camera.
Right.
Anyone who's starting who doesn't want to dump $2,000 into a camera setup, that is the absolute first camera I recommend because it is such a good little, for the better purposes, starter camera. So
for sure.
I don't know.
I mean, any camera these days can get great quality. I mean, there's no reason to not have good quality. Anything from A7 III and beyond, 6400, 6000, 6100, those amazing. I mean, these incremental changes that make your life a lot easier are in these newer ones, but everything is, I don't know, everything's capable, everything's amazing. So I don't
I
know.
just
It's a
I'm
great
just
time.
thinking
It's a
about
great time to be a creator.
I was just thinking, Paul, the pictures that you have on the top of the screen there, those
Yeah.
were actually all shot. We did that whole video doing photography on the A7S III. That's kind of like doing the photography on this camera. The only difference is electronic shutter, but I think
Yeah.
that was
I don't know
very
what yours
capable.
were all in Sweden. I don't know which one you were using in those.
Well, the one's in New York. The one would have been the A7 IV. No, that was my A7S III with the 70 to 200 with this on all the way to the left. Curtis took that photo. The one in the middle is the ZVE1, technically, with the 35 to 150 Tamron. Peter took that photo. And then the one on the right's an A7 IV with 70 to 200 from Curtis. But yeah, they're pretty much all in the same spot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't actually done a lot of photography with this camera yet, so I think it might be intriguing to go somewhere with this and make a fun video on how good those things can look. So
I think that'd be right up your alley too. Definitely gonna do POV on that one. Would probably hit some people's for sure.
there would have been a POV in for sure in Sweden when we went. The problem is my GoPro batteries, like none of them wanted to stay charged. So it died, and I put a new one in, and it died right away. So
Huh.
then I had like a brand new, like generic one. I put it in. It just worked for like 3 minutes. So I don't know if I had a GoPro problem or something, but I just said scrap it. We're gonna figure out a new way to do this video, and that's what we ended up doing with the video. But now I have that Osmo 4, so it's gonna be a lot better and nicer. Plus, it's gonna look a lot nicer.
Oh yeah. That thing looks very impressive. I can't wait to do some more stuff on it. But
My last POV videos were on the GoPro 6.
what else we got? Oh, we got a super chat.
Shoot, heck yeah.
Super chats. Thank you. Let's see. That
What is
went
that
to
symbol?
Kyle.
Where's he? Where are you from? I'm trying to figure out what that symbol is.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good
It's like an
question.
R or something. Yeah.
Richie, where are you from,
Awesome,
bud?
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, my A6400 days were great. The one thing I will say about shooting with that camera, because it doesn't have any stabilization whatsoever, you start to get good at filming without stabilization to a point where when you do get something that's like super stabilized, it's just like a cake, like a walk in the park. So like there is something to be said about that, but it was very frustrating not having any stabilization.
I mean, the stabilization on the ZVE1 is like that dynamic is crazy. This thing I think is fantastic with the active stabilization.
Mhm.
So I mean, when that with that dynamic stabilization, that thing is just like I remember when we were in Disney and I'm just like I'm running with it in my hand and I'm just like
Yeah.
I'm like and it
Well,
was like
we also did have that 10 millimeter lens on there, which makes that a little bit better too. But when we were in Sweden, Peter was filming a what do they call that camera? The DJI Ronin 4.
the
What is
Ronin
it called?
4D.
4D. Yeah, he was doing something with some lenses that didn't exist at the time, and I don't even know if they still do. They might have never came out, but he was doing a full shoot doing that camera compared to the FX6. The FX6 not on a gimbal because he wanted to showcase how those cameras came. And I was doing his B-roll with the ZVE1, and we were walking through the woods where he shot like all the rivals stuff. So it's
Right.
very off track woods, very bumpy. The ground is like mushy because it's like mossy, and I almost tripped on some like logs and sticks and trees and stuff. So I'm like walking sideways, more focusing on them, less on the camera. And then I get done and I like play it back. It was like Peter's like talking about the stabilization of the 4D. And I was like, hey Peter, you gotta look at the ZV1. And keep in mind, like this is the first day we had the camera. So we didn't even know what it was. So I showed him the thing and he's like, you gotta be shitting me. He goes, that's dynamic stabilization. He's like, that looks as good as the damn 4D almost. And that's a
They're gonna
$5,000,
stabilize,
$6,000 kit.
cinema
Yeah.
camera.
And this is all just in sensor, and it's like it has its flaws. If you move fast, you get kind of wonky, but as long as you're like staying fairly purposeful with what you're doing and not turning or whipping around, that thing looks just so good. And that's why I was like, I use this more than my A7S III now because this has some cooler features to it. Um, like when I go to do production stuff on sets, I'm still bringing my A7S III just because it's I won't have to worry at all about any possible heating issues because that camera does not ever overheat. Period.
No.
Plus, I'm using it on my rig that's meant for the A7S III anyways. So, but yeah, that dynamic stabilization, they need that on all. I was let down when that was not on the A6700. I get like I'm going from the A6400, which has no stabilization, to getting standard and active, and then like immediately my brain goes, "Where's the dynamic? Like this should have dynamic, right?"
I I was
So
let down when the A7C Mark II didn't have it either. I'm like, come on, man. But I
yeah,
guess they didn't want to like completely just like
it is in the
throw a wrench in it
A9.
versus
It is
the
in the new A9, right?
what?
It is in the new A9, I think.
It is, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It comes with a crop, but who cares? When you get the stabilization the way you do, and I don't have to deal with it in post, and it looks better than when I deal with it in post half the time.
Well, plus
Yep.
I think it's really cool for like product B-roll where you want to go
Yep.
fully handheld and you don't want to use a gimbal. You just dynamic stabilization and just do all your movements in
Yeah.
S&Q mode, and then you have a freaking stable like
It's
slow
great.
motion
Yeah.
shot. I mean, I think it's
And it's
cool.
that 12-bit megapixel sensor, so you can go in low light and do shots. Because like when you're in studio doing like B-roll shots, it's actually darker than you think it is. And if you don't have the right setting, you'll get in your computer and be like, it's kind of grainy. So like, it's just I always jump to 12,800 and then roll my aperture until it just looks right. So, but that dynamic stabilization is so good for B-roll. They need that in every camera, period. So
And I think from now on, I think the rest of the year, every camera will have it in there.
I really hope
That's
so.
my thoughts.
I can only imagine because of it is like a 30% crop. That's why the A6700 maybe didn't have it because then you do lose some
Cropping most
resolution
of the
there,
sensor.
but I don't know.
We'll
I
see.
did see, yeah.
Wait till the E10 version 2. See if that one has.
So I know we're getting long here, Paul, but I just wanted to close with, and it's maybe a little early to talk about it. It's still like 10 days away. Any Black Friday things that you know about or are planning or hoping for that you're gonna kind of look out for?
Well, I've been eyeballing that new, or not new now, but that Viltrox, or not Viltrox. Oh my gosh, the tripod from Ulanzi. I really,
Zero Y.
I don't know. The funny part is I really want it, but I never shoot with my tripod like ever unless I'm doing real estate stuff. But
Yeah.
I feel like if it's lighter and smaller, I might bring it around and actually use it. But I don't know.
I want that Zero Y one too, just because I like it. But I have that C-Ray one that's like right here. This thing is just better than anything that I'm going to get anyways if I were to buy that because it's carbon fiber. It's smaller than a Joby 5K. It weighs nothing. I can still put that adapter on the top, and it's good enough, and it's small. So I did replace this tripod in the back there though. I got this like newer brand.
Yeah.
Carbon fiber. It's different on how it sets up, and it's like 78 inches tall. So I can literally like touch the ceiling with it. So if you ever want to think you didn't have your tall enough of a tripod, that is now as tall as I can ever. Because that was always my problem. And my tripods would always be just shorter than me, so I'd have to walk up to the camera and then kind of dip down a little bit. But that thing is, you can just make that perfect. So durability wise, I have no idea how it's going to last, but we'll see. That's something I'm trying out now.
We also usually look for SD cards, and so I lost. Yeah, and they got some deals on those right now, but I think they're going to get even better when it gets actually on Black Friday. But I lost my T7 drive. I had a 1 terabyte red T7 drive. It had all my client work on it, like projects. So if I did a project for that client again, I wouldn't have to like reinvent the wheel with all their animations and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's been gone. I haven't seen it for like a month now, and I cannot find. I think it must have like fallen out of my The only thing I can think of is if it fell out of my camera bag somewhere and I had it with me. But I'm like, I'm so upset about this because, and yes, it was
Well,
a
the
1
the
terabyte drive
footage
that's
is,
like
yeah,
$100 now or $89, but the files on it is what I'm kind of really ticked
yeah.
about losing.
So if you get to see this in a Black Friday sale, and I know I discussed this with Paul before, saying mine never had a problem, so I must have got a good one. Don't buy these. This is the Extreme Pro SSD 2 terabyte. I paid a lot of money. I have all my Sweden footage on here, Paul. It says I have a terabyte of space on here, but nothing is coming up on this drive when I plug it in anymore. So all my stuff from Sweden is effectively not. It's gone. I don't know where it is.
All right, Jason.
Skip these, and anytime you even like nothing against T7s because I got a bunch of them too, but like the T5s and T7s, if you guys are using a MacBook, these are going to max out at like 800 or 900 anyways, or like 1100 for some of them. These, regardless of what the speed says they are, will not go any higher because these are a 3.2 USB and they're not a Thunderbolt. Your SSD on MacBooks, or at least the MacBook Pros, are a Thunderbolt cable. So instead, if you buy an enclosure and an SSD, you can get a 2 terabyte SSD with this enclosure for maybe a little bit more than what that cost. This does like 2,800 megabytes per second or more. So it almost is as fast as the damn computer.
I wanna build one of those. I'm actually if I'll be eyeballing for an M.2 drive
Yeah.
around Black Friday.
Yeah, that's what this is. It's a NVMe SSD enclosure. It's a USB 4, otherwise it's a Thunderbolt. And then it's the M.2 SSD. The cool thing with this is if you ever want to just take this out and get a new one, if it fails or something, you can put a new one in the enclosure and it'll work fine. So I'm getting blazingly fast speeds with this instead of like these things. These things never went over 800 or 900 on my bench test. So
Nope.
you got to have a
And
Thunderbolt.
yeah,
There is
I
another.
would stay away from that SanDisk. I mean,
Yeah.
I have mine, and it's a 2 terabyte one, and it hasn't had any problems yet. But I'm also only going to use it for YouTube. I'm never going to put any client work on it because of that reason. I never trust whether it's going to die or not.
Yeah. There's a couple new SSD Thunderbolts out there now too. This guy just put one up here too.
Sabrent. That's what I would
Yeah.
look for as well. That's a very good brand.
There's another one that just came out that looks pretty cool. That's like compact. I can't remember the name of it, but it's not that expensive. But yeah, it's I'm waiting for Samsung to put out a 4 terabyte version of that because I'm buying a heartbeat. I think I got like $250 into that. It wasn't that expensive compared to a 2 terabyte one of these. And like I said, if I hit get details, it says I have 1 terabyte used and 1 terabyte of space left. But there's
Why don't you
nothing that
do a warranty claim on that thing?
I don't know. But all I know is that I have a terabyte of stuff from Sweden on here, but it doesn't show up anymore on my computer. So I'm pretty pissed about that. I might have backed that up into my like 18 terabyte storage crappy one that I have, but
I mean, I will say that the SanDisk customer service is phenomenal. So you should be able to get a new one, no problem. I've gone through my second Extreme Pro card because they keep cracking over time. I mean, they're just really thin, and I don't, right when it starts cracking, I just email them, and they just no questions asked, just send me another one. So
Hmm.
I'm on my. And the funny part was, I think I started with a 95 megabyte speed card, and then like the second one I got was like 170.
Hmm.
And then like I think now the third one they sent me is like 200. So they keep getting faster because of the lowest speed they make, So I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I think those are the things for Black Friday. Looking for just stuff like that. I'm not looking for big gear, so to speak.
No,
I've been buying a lot of used stuff for the cameras
they
lately because
definitely
you
don't.
just get such good deals on these things.
They definitely don't seem to put out big gear on deals. You might get like $100, $200 off on like outdated gear. Like,
Right.
oh, the A7 III now has $400 off. And it's like, well, it's still $1,500. Like that's not good. It's an 8-year-old camera almost at this point. So, but
Right. You
like,
can get a great deal on those in the used market.
sometimes get a couple $100 off if you're buying like a package Sony thing or something. But most of it's going to be small stuff or like independent companies and small companies stuff. I think Nomadic's going to have some pretty cool sales on their stuff, which is fun. Those new bags, I don't think that's their campaign, so that won't be for sale yet. SD cards and SSD cards are always where it's at. So if you guys just bought a new camera, a new E1 or A6700 or whatever you got, now's the time to buy those those UHS2 cards because they're expensive. And I always get the Lexar ones or the Pro Grade. Lexars have been perfect for me. I've had one issue once with one card, but they warranted it. So
Yeah, I get ProGrade and Lexar. Either one of those, I got no problems with.
yeah, and if you're
So
still shooting on some like old cameras, like the ZV-E10 or something, the like V30 ScanDisk, like 128 gig cards, these things are like $14 on sale on Black Friday, which are always nice. So
yeah,
that's
and
the
I
one thing I don't
use
think. That's the one thing I don't think people understand when they're upgrading to these like A7 III, A7S3 is the SD cards go up to like $100+ a card instead of like $20 a card. So
yeah, and it's crazy.
it's
I use the ProGrade. If I had to choose between the Lexar or the ProGrade, I think I'm going to choose the ProGrade over that because it just it feels a little bit thicker than it's like somewhere between a regular SD card and the tough cards for Sony. These aren't like super tough, but they're not like, I don't know. Like there's no give in this. I love the Sony cards, the Sony tough cards, but they're expensive. If you found a deal on you know, I have a few of the V60, the V60 version of the tough, the M cards. They're very good, but I'm only buying V90s now if I'm buying SD cards, and if I actually now that I've tasted and seen with this thing, if I can, I would probably get a. I would love to have the 1 terabyte Angel Bird, but I feel like between the Angel Bird and this one, I would never ever need anything else as far as capacity goes. I would just have the Angel Bird as my main card, and this one would be like the backup.
I just like maxing out a 128 gig card, dumping your files, dumping your project onto your computer, taking the card back out, putting it in the camera, and hit format. If I had an Angel Bird one, I would never want to do that because I'd be like, oh, I got terabyte of space. I don't need to format this. But then every time you bring it into your project, you'd have to like scroll through and find where it starts and like, yeah, don't get me started on that. I like
I'm
clearing my
super
cards.
organized. I prefer once I get the project off my SD card and onto the SSD, and I actually finish editing the project, then I like to wipe the card out. So right now I have enough V90 cards where I just will leave it on my desk until I'm done editing on my hard drive, and then once I'm done editing, then I just plug it into my camera, format it, and done with it.
See, my problem is I'm very lazy about editing. It's my like least favorite part of this whole thing. Some people they like editing a lot. I like being done editing, and like you take pride in what you did. I hate the like during part. So what I end up doing is I always have like projects that I'm still working on, and I'm like, well, I don't want to delete the card even though it's on my computer because if something goes wrong on the computer, I need the card. So I got to go buy another SSD card or SD card. So that's why I have like 8 SD cards is because I just like 4 of them have projects that I still am working on at all times, and the other 4 are like slightly open or not. And so I have like a mini fortune in SD cards at this point, but
Yeah. And you're so
whatever.
dang good at editing. I don't understand, man.
Just don't like the process. I get if you get in the wrong mindset, in the wrong mood, I don't feel my edit. And holy
I
crap,
will
look who just
I will say that
oh yeah, you
it
betcha.
depends on the
Look who just
day.
showed up, Paul.
What?
I said, oh look who showed up. I'm trying to
Oh,
do I'm trying to do my best Minnesota accent, which I can't do. Oh yeah, Preston's mine's on the wall
it's
too.
on my wall.
Mine's over there. It's out of frame, but it's on the wall.
It's on my wall.
Preston, man, it's been too long, buddy. I had a guy who came into our my work the other day who had the most North Dakota accent I've heard in a long time. Because I think Preston, you're from North Dakota, right? Not South.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember that. Like that's a pretty distinct
I
accent.
mean,
Even
I just remember that
I
nobody
hear
who
it.
actually lives in North Dakota. I mean, I didn't even know North Dakota existed for a
You
while
know, in
there.
the '90s when Fargo came out, everyone's like, "Oh, you're from Minnesota," and I was like, "That movie, that was the accent in that movie is North Dakota. It's not. It's not Minnesota. It's Fargo." Yeah, correct. Okay. I mean, we probably have similar accents, but I don't hear it as much. But I hear it on people from North Dakota for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't even know where I was going, what we were going before that, but
Well, I think we were just going to say get some good deals on Black Friday, and we probably got to dip out. It's been 2 hours.
we just like talking. We just like
I know.
talking.
Yeah, it's, that's the thing. It's like this live stream. I like asking people to ask questions, bringing in topics. We can bring other people in. But really, Paul, if I wasn't on the live stream right now, I'd be easily sitting on the phone with you too, just yapping about cameras and crap.
Oh, I know. I think the last time we talked, it was a while, and I think we were on the phone for like 2.5 hours. And I think the only reason why we got off is we had to go somewhere.
Yeah. Minnesota quite a bit for Twins, Vikings, and T-Wolves. Man, them Wolves are. Don't even tell me what the score is because I'm missing the Wolves game right now, Paul. Wolves
Oh,
they've won 7 in a row, and that might not sound big deal, but Timberwolves have never been good, almost ever. So for them to be like the best team in NBA right now and taking down the like playoff teams from last year, it's pretty impressive.
the Magic is just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although tonight I can't imagine they'll play great because they just played last night, so we'll see. Yeah, I got my throwback Wolves jersey the other day at the game. It was awesome.
You
They
were
had
at
the,
you were at that game, yeah.
they had the court all dressed up with the 1989 court with the 89 jerseys, the 89 Wolf Howlers, which is like a little megaphone with a wolf head on the end. I went to the very first Timberwolves game at the Minnesota. It was at the Metrodome because they didn't have a stadium yet. So what they did is they put it inside the Metrodome, which was where like baseball and the football used to play, and they broke the like all-time record for attendance that lasted for quite a while until another team eventually had a game in a football stadium. So
Not going so hot for your team,
ooh,
I guess.
that's all right.
I mean, you can't win them all, I guess.
Yeah, well, they had some instances last night that they were they were tired. There was a big fight at the beginning of the game. It was great.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I'm also last time I went to the game, I was watching like David or what's his name, David Sherman. I can't remember his name right offhand. He's a photographer for the Timberwolves, but he also has done like a ton of like concerts and LeBron James things, and he's like a kind of a legend, I think, in the sports photography world. But I was just kind of seeing how he was like shooting stuff. His name is David Sherman, if you want to look it up. I like at one point was going to actually like apply to be one of the photographers for like the street team or like the games where you would sit on the court and you would take photos, and then you literally after the quarter would switch with someone else. You'd go back quick, edit your photos, throw them up on Instagram. Because it was like the social media team
Right.
for stuff. And I was like, I love going to the games and just staring down and be like, oh, he's got an FX3. That's definitely the 70 to 200. I can tell it's the version 2 because it has a hood that goes all the way around. So it's like I'm going to a game. I'm just geeking out at what gear everyone's using. And speaking of which, someone actually was using the Ronin 4D at the Timberwolves game last time.
Wow.
When the cheerleaders would come out and do their like dance things and numbers, he's like going around the line a circle, and I'm like, is he using a freaking Ronin 4D? Like that's awesome. I never would have thought that camera would made it into like the sports world, but it makes sense. It's a smaller setup than those big like
Right.
whatever rigs that everyone uses.
Everywhere
So
I go, I'm always looking for when I see a camera, I'm like, ooh, that's a Sony FX3. Oh, that's a
that's the problem. That's the
A7S3. Oh,
problem,
that's
man. And that's right. Why for us, Paul? Why when the A7S4 comes out, A7 III is gone. I'm the new one's going to be in my bag. Like it's just I'm a gear nerd. Plus, when you're like doing this trying to do this as a career too, you kind of want to stay up with obviously the new things because that's what everyone seems to want to care about. So like, there's nothing wrong with the A7S III. Doesn't matter. You got to have the next thing. Sony knows that, and that's why they keep putting out 5 cameras a year.
just trying to break us.
Yeah.
Just trying to break us.
So what should we close with, Paul? Should we close with a little bit of this?
All right, we have a winner. Bob, tell them what they won.
Oh man, Bert needs to make a comeback at some point.
I'm waiting for Bert. I miss Bert.
I still want to film a biopic on the fall of Bert Bert, what is it? McElroy. Bert McElroy.
Bert McElroy.
When we're in Vegas, that's when we should film that biopic. Like when
I
Bert
think it'd be
hits rock
funny to see
bottom
him walk around
at NAB.
Vegas.
And if anyone wants to go to NAB next year, it's in April. It's a fun time. Specifically, if you're like a content creator or something like that, you meet a lot of fun brands, you meet a lot of fun people. You just kind of have a lot of creativity in like a 3-4 day weekend. So,
Thanks for joining us.
yeah, man. Yeah, we should probably get back to doing this maybe every couple weeks, just for something.
Oh yeah, especially since I spent all this time making all this artwork and everything. Yeah, man, we gotta
exactly. And then
you've been paying for my streaming account.
Yeah, well, let me know if the price goes up after this Black Friday sales. Because I'm doing monthly at this point, so I don't know if that locks in at the monthly rate or not. If you guys haven't noticed, we also upgraded the stream to an HD stream. We were using the 720p stream before, so I always thought it just was a little weird trying to showcase good footage on a low-res platform, which didn't make sense. So, but it did make total sense to do it with the Creator Camp because that was all supposed to look VHS-y anyways, so that was fine. Yeah, hopefully we can get that going again. That was a lot of work. It was a lot of pre-planning, a lot of editing in the new video intros every week, editing all the game at the middle. It was definitely the one funnest thing that I've done on the stream though was doing the game show thing.
That was fun.
It was fun. It takes days of like research for me to even find the clips that I needed to find to come up with 6 questions. So we'll get back to it when we can. I definitely want to get back to it when we can get like 6 or 7 people lined up so we can have like 6 or 7 weeks straight.
I have when we went to NAB, I have a full thing on my phone for Creator Camp guests with their contact, and they're all like, yeah, I have a list of 13 people that are willing to be on the show. Let's just see, and let's name a few here. Dylan Bates, the Final Cut Bro. We got Matthew O'Brien, got Keith Kettle, got Brandon Washington, Connor McCaskill, Stephen Michael Zach, Doc Rock, Mr. Camera Junkie, Jake Sloan put himself on the list. Post Color Gear, Mr. Alex Tech, Brenton Estrand. So some of these people I met in person, and I've only a few of them I've only watched a few of their videos. But
it'd be cool to get Gareth Edwards on here, which is the director of the movie The Creator.
That would be really cool.
I doubt it would happen. We could probably get the DP. Maybe he's been on a few people's stuff, but I mean, you name a movie, the creator, you got to come on creator camp, right?
Creator,
Like he's a director, writer. He's kind of the DP. Let's face it. I mean, like he's the cameraman for most of the movie as well. So like, he kind of did it all. That's what's fun about that style of filmmaking, and you gotta go see that movie, Paul. So anyone else is still watching too, go see the movie The Creator. You can now go get it on Amazon streaming. If you want to wait for the behind the scenes features and extra stuff that comes with the DVD, I think that's December 12th. But I know you can get it on Amazon and Apple right now. I don't think it has the special features though.
Oh, so you're saying that is it free on Apple?
No. You'd have to buy it. It's like $20. But I think the like 4K DVD digital Blu-ray one with special features is going to be like $30 or something like that. But that won't come out till like middle December. But yeah, it's a really good movie. It's not even just like who cares about the camera aside. I went into the movie going to watch it to go see the camera,
right?
Like a lot of people did. And then like halfway through the movie, I'm like, fuck, this is a good movie. This is like a really good sci-fi movie it's been a long time. It has a lot of vibes. It has a lot of the same vibes that like Rogue One had.
Right.
Gareth Edwards directed Rogue One. He did the Godzilla movies. He did Monster. When Monster was actually shot on a Sony EX3, an old school kind of shoulder cam. So like he's really good at shooting those kind of first person like guerrilla on a gimbal style filmmaking. So that's what they really wanted to achieve, is the ability to be able to turn around in the scene at 360 and not pick up cameras and stands and lighting crew. And
and he was very hands-on with his shots. I mean, I think he shot most of the movie himself, like as far as like the camera.
They definitely had a best boy that was doing like sometimes they only had like single lighting rigs, like a battery powered aperture light kind of thing. Because like I said, they wanted realism and it looks so good. And apparently they filmed, not to get too in depth with it, they filmed the whole movie. They edited the entire movie. They got the music score done. Then they handed it over to the CG people. That doesn't happen that way. It's usually half the time the CG is making the movie, let alone adding to it. But when you talk about a sci-fi movie with spaceships and crazy like animatronic things in the AI people's heads, and to do all of that after the movie was done and edited is crazy. But it looks so good. Like you would think that like all of that is just like green screen ears and stuff like that they would just switch out later. But when you see the behind the scenes, it's like, no, they're real people. They just did the artwork on top of stuff, and it looks so like intentional and awesome movie. Go see the movie. Spend your $19 on Amazon right now and just go watch it.
All right. Well, that's a great way to end it, because we are 10 seconds away from getting 2 hours. So
yep. Let's roll that outro, Paul. We'll see you on the next one. We're gonna go with the old school outro. Is there an outro? Oh, we still have an outro. Yeah. Old school outro, guys. Thanks for watching, you guys. Later.